Like many others, there have been quite a few topics of discussion going on around the new StarCraft 2 patch. The first thing I'd like to say is that Blizzard is back. That's probably the coolest thing about this. This video I'm making is about an update to the PTR, not even the original release. I'd just like to point that out. We didn't have to wait a month to get a bug fix on the Storm. We can actually see a path to having regular updates to StarCraft again, or at the very least, regular improvements to this next patch. Who knows how long we'll be playing on it. Um, so I'm just going to get right into it. I'm sure you've seen many others' opinions on this. I'm going to be echoing some of them and giving a few of my own. But there are some changes coming to StarCraft potentially. You can play them on the PTR, and some of these have been updated from the original build. I'm going to go line by line and start with just a general. I really loved the patches when we got them from the Balance Council, the ones that went for the user accessibility of the game, things that reduce some of the frustrating points for players of all races. I'd like to specifically call out the one that doubled the range of all of the workers' attacks, just to make dealing with stuff in your base a little bit less frustrating. Shout out to you guys. We need to keep changes that improve the playability of the game. We're all getting older. I'm 32 now. Who knows? StarCraft players aren't getting older or any younger. So please, it's okay to make the game a little easier to play for some of us as our limbs fall apart. But I'm also interested in having the meta freshened up. I think we can all agree that there were a lot of really targeted changes that made Protoss suck, right? For a few years there, and we got some weird changes for Zerg and Terran. I mean, Hydra's got a jump ability that was pretty cool. I like that one. Um, but I've got a lot to say about this. So let's just start with it. Spire cost reduced. This is a really good thing. I miss mutas. We should encourage getting back to active gameplay where it's not just rushing to Hive. We really need to bring back the mid game, guys. Way too little mid game. It's the same reason why I'm going to say I like the 5 HP buff back to Banelings. Ling Bane Muta is a lot of what I see out of the Zerg changes for this update. Reducing the Spire build time. It will finally build a Spire faster than a battlecruiser can get its teleport cooldown. So, that can save you 5 seconds if the Terran knows they won't be able to teleport out at the last second. If that's really relevant anyway. But yes, bring back Banelings, bring back Lings, and obviously by bringing back Spire play, that's a lot of gas. Lings go hand in hand with that. So it's just good. It's just good in general for encouraging that. Mutas have sucked for a long time. I would actually like to see them maybe throw in a buff for mutas or make the regen kick in a little bit faster for them. Whatever it takes, honestly. I just, yeah. Why does every game have to be like rush into ultralisks or lurkers? It slows things down a lot. That's all I'm gonna say. Microbial Shroud. So they're turning Microbial Shroud. You guys probably heard a lot of discussions on this. It's becoming like Dark Swarm from Brood War. And there's also some controversial takes on the fact that it affects enemy units. So if your Marines run into this cloud, I'm under the impression you're taking half damage from the Zerg's ranged attacks as well. So it's a fun chat. Apparently that is how it works in Brood War. I'm not particularly a Brood War aficionado. I only ever built carriers and probably never looked at the health of any unit in Dark Swarm before. So I think this is a really cool change, mostly because it's like something that's really strategical that you have to think about. I don't really know if it's too strong, but like this is the kind of change that will redefine how Zerg players master playing the game. Because it is so good that it essentially will have to be a staple in many ways to regular gameplay. So whether you think it's strong or not, if you're a Zerg player, this like could freshen up the game for years for you. Like getting really good at using this ability will really give you an extra opportunity to outplay people. But I would like to take this opportunity to say, since they're putting in an upgrade, if I don't really know how much we want to like get into the nitty gritty on that, I'd like to echo Katz's sentiment. Bring back the infested Terran, please. I don't know how much it plays into the Zerg fantasy for them to be such a spellbound race. I like these changes because these changes encourage strategies that go to the Zerg core gameplay idea or fantasy rather of swarminess. Right? We all want Zerg to feel swarmy. I don't need banelings to be garbage units. I need them to be just good enough that I can still want to move out on the map and try and split against them, right? Obviously, but like I don't want them to be so irrelevant that I don't see them. I don't want mutas to be so bad that I don't see them. Like I'd really I enjoy game variety. So there's some really good stuff they've got going here. But yeah, if I could just throw a +1 onto cats, I miss infested Terrans. They were my absolute favorite unit. They were basically the only reason I ever played Zerg. Um, most because this guys it's so fun to just get a burrowed infester around a dude who doesn't make a turret and just throw 8 zombies in his. I'm I'm rambling. Let's go to the Protoss changes. Yeah, but there's not too much here for Zerg. These actually really freshen up what it will mean to play Zerg. That's my general opinion on the patch. Um, just as far as like if you play StarCraft, are you gonna like this? If you play Zerg, you're probably gonna like it. It's gonna make the game more interesting for you. The Zerg stuff here, anyway. Now we go to Protoss. There was a lot of controversial discussions around the Protoss changes, particularly because a lot of videos were getting posted on Reddit of Psystorm not really dealing damage. And in my personal experience, I've played maybe 100 games on the PTR between the first version and the second version, maybe like 60-40 split. And it was really bad at first. The storm didn't do anything. It was like getting tickled by multiple sentries at a time, more or less. So I have also played it on the new build. It's a lot better, but it's actually still easier to run through. Like if you're using fast units and the storm goes down on your units, and you are actively paying attention and you run out of the storm as fast as possible, then this patch is a buff for you, for your play style, your active play style. If you're playing an active play style and you're not sitting in storms, this is a buff for you. If you're the kind of guy that's got a bunch of siege tanks clumped up or he has widow mines clumped up, hoping the opponent walks into a spot, well, now the storm is going to be guaranteed to kill all your stuff, or at the very least, it's going to get a lot more value. So, I think that's it's a good thing in a way. If you're storming someone who's in a turtley position who can't move, then storm gains a ton of value and also denies space. But if you're somebody who's got a bunch of units out or you're spread out and you're not necessarily having any reason to sit in the storm, then yeah, you will benefit more from that. The other big thing is that because it takes that extra time, even though you feel like you might be able to run through it with something like, say, Marauders or Corruptors, since it will be there for a while after you dive through it, it changes the value proposition of going for a dive because it's not guaranteed to get back on the way out, right? Like you're not necessarily committing to just running through a storm once anymore. You have to commit to running in and out in certain situations. I don't really think that conversation has happened, but I just wanted to say that you might try and be like, oh, I can run through the storm to hit the carrier, but the storm will still be there on the way out. So keep that in mind. That's not the case at the moment. Maybe it doesn't matter. I don't know. But yeah, Storm has obviously changed a lot. Those are my opinions on that specifically. The mothership is getting nerfed again. I don't really know why. I guess they want people. They don't want a mothership to be a fight decider. It's because they can't abduct it anymore, right? I think that's like a very balance focused one. I don't have any strong thoughts. I think the mothership should be a bad bitch, and that's where it is, um, or where it was anyway. Bring back permacloak, all right? You won't. Energy overcharge, having a shorter cooldown and reducing the energy that it gives is basically saying if you're the type of player who's on top of your stuff, if you can hit your macro cycles, then you're going to get to use it more often, and you won't get as much out of it, but you'll be able to use it in a more flexible kind of way. So this kind of raises the skill ceiling but lowers the overall strength. So is what it is. I don't mind that at all. Dark Templar, blink attack delay. Planetary fortresses did get an armor nerf. I'd like to remind everybody that happened. That said, planetary fortresses are also still crazy good, and I got to admit it's pretty badass when you blink a team of DTs in and they either get it or don't. You need to have some level of awareness of what your opponent is doing in a game of StarCraft. Like, I know that the planetary costs 150 gas, but in a hypothetical scenario where they're blinking enough DTs into one shot, you're talking like over 1,000 Vespine at risk. So, look, sometimes let people go all in. All right, let people double down on their blackjack hand. That's what I have to say. Okay, if they want to split tens, then God help them. Purification radius increase. So the disruptor is getting a little bit of love. These nerfs, I would just like to talk for 1 second about the disruptor. Can we just get rid of the delay, or what? Is that still a thing when it drops out of the prism? Can they fire immediately yet? Why haven't we touched that? Like, why haven't we just made it a more satisfying unit to use, and we can keep these numbers in a kind of shitty place so that it's like this, cool micro unit. I thought that's what it was supposed to be. This is just turning the disruptor into, they're trying to make it into more of a consistent damage dealer, is my understanding here. But I don't know. If you want Protoss players to move away from boring openers, you got to strengthen openers. And for disruptors, the only good opener play is Out of the Prism. So I would just like you to keep that in mind. It may not necessarily be a better direction to go in for balance or for like main actual battles, but wouldn't we want to encourage the early game variety? I don't know. Maybe Protoss has too many early game builds. Maybe I'm wrong on that. Man. Stasis ward duration reduced. I don't know. They don't want you to go Stargate openers as much. Those have always been pretty solid, though, right? So it's like, maybe they've got more leeway there. Overall thoughts on Protoss changes. It's going to redefine what it means to use Storm. That's about it. In a similar way to the Dark Swarm, like you've got something that is changing the mastery players have built up for Storm forever. Oh, I should talk about the Observer thing. Oh my gosh, yeah, this is actually pretty nuts. Guys, I just like to remind you that the surveillance mode was added in like one of those crazy shakeup patches, I think like 2018 or 2017. I would just like to say the Observer has been nerfed a ton. Like they denied its speed buff. They wouldn't let him have that. They made him dummy thick so that they're easier to see. And they also did make the surveillance mode essentially reveal itself. Why not just nerf surveillance mode and leave it? Why not just let it be invisible? And how about we all have a come into God moment here and we just say, look, the reason surveillance mode exists is so Protoss players can use F2. Can we all just admit that and just not do this? Can you just nerf the vision radius of surveillance mode a little bit so that people just use it for what it is, which is a hold position button, a permanent hold position button for observers? I feel like if we could all just recognize that, we don't have to do this, because the whole point of observers is they're invisible. Protoss doesn't really have they don't have any other consistent detection in the game. You want them to build more photon cannons and drag things out? Like, what? Anyway, you need to be able to see the lurkers too. So, maybe I'm just fooling myself again. Yeah. So Protoss players are going to get a game redefining experience for sure out of those changes. Now we go to Terran. I honestly thought these were all really boring. They're not super interesting. The siege tank can't be abducted when in siege mode. Guys, I gotta be real with you. Most of the time, siege tanks are getting hit with blinding cloud because they're close to each other. And if siege tanks are spread out, then yeah, I guess abduct is good there. But like, if they're spread out, siege tanks also aren't really that strong. So I hate building lots of tanks. So I'm like, if this is a huge balance concern, I've seen a lot of comments on social media that it's a balance concern for tanks. Or that it's like a weird thing with the fantasy. People are like, do the tanks dig underground? Is that it? Are they like tent poles or something? I don't know. I don't find this change interesting at all, and I don't really care. Don't put it in the game if it's bad for the balance. All right, we don't need this. I don't know who wants that. It's like, whatever, man. Don't spread your tanks out at the edge of all of your bases, and you probably won't get abducted. So drilling claw's effectiveness increased. So this basically sets Widow Mines back to being able to run underneath air units like Tempest and carriers. My favorite way of using battle cruisers back in the day was to run Widow Mines underneath armies, especially since you can run through Storm more easily now. It's worth mentioning that you could use Widow Mines more aggressively. That's basically what this is, or for mine drops in front of photon cannons. I only like this if it gets us back to like Marines, right? Like if we put this change in context with the Spire change, maybe we get Marine Mine versus Lingbane Muta. I would love that. Please, pretty please with caramel on top. Hyperflight research time decreased. This ability got used for like 2 weeks in TVZ in like 2021, and then they nerfed it like this, and we never saw it again. So maybe we'll see it again. I do like Speed Banshees, but yeah, I like it a lot, but it's probably the best change for Terran in this patch with next to the mines. Liberator sight reduced. So this is like just another like lying to ourselves moment, guys. This is like the Protoss change. Okay, we all need to put our hands together. We all need to put our hands together and say out loud, we have to admit to ourselves the truth. Guys, let's just say it. Just let it off your chest. Liberator range is horrible for the game. Liberator range upgrade affects map design in such a nasty way that everything is so overly micromanaged because we just refuse to let there be maps that Liberator range is really good on. So every map just has to be super ugly. Just look at every map that's come out for years now. It gets worse every patch. How much space is behind the mineral lines? It limits the distance between the main and the end of the map because nobody wants to risk there being any possibility of a Liberator sieging on like one patch that can't be reached. Nobody wants this. Get rid of Liberator range. What are you doing? If Liberators are too strong, just get rid of that and then work from there. You already made them cheaper for no reason. If Liberators are a little bit worse, guess what? You want to know another unit we're trying to get back in the game that Liberators are really good against? Yes, the Mutalisk. Why can't we just nerf Liberators and then do something else? This PTR update came out within a week of the first one. There is someone out there reading these posts. There is someone out there collecting feedback. And God help us. God help us if they get rid of Liberator range and say, we can just work from there so that map design can go back to being beautiful. People used to just make maps and try to make them look cool and not worry too much about if it's fitting some esports template. Guys, there is no like there is no reason to do this anymore. Let's not mess with ourselves here. Get rid of Liberator range. Let people put mineral patches on the edges of cliffs. Let people do interesting things again with maps. Seriously, it gets worse every season. Bug fixes. Yeah, the Terran changes, by the way. Sorry, aside from that rant, my general thoughts are the Terran changes are super boring. Like, Zerg players have a completely gameplay redefining change with having a true Dark Swarm in the game. It will redefine Zerg late game because people already use Infestors for a variety of reasons. This makes them better units. This makes them a bigger target. But also at the same time, it's going to change the way that many battles play out. So Zergs are going to have to relearn the game from that perspective. Protosses will have to do something similar with Storm. The Observer changed as is game redefining because you lose your ability to have F2 not affect your invisible scout. That's what this is about, guys. If you're honest about it, you can actually fix the problem. You can. But anyway, the Terran changes are boring. There's nothing here that redefines the gameplay. The Viking cost is just like, okay, you save 25 minerals on Vikings. Well, Terran is usually gas starved when it comes to late game when they're building stuff like this. So I guess it'll be slightly easier to get out a few panic Vikings. I don't know. It's a very boring change. TVT is already all about Vikings. So now it's more all about Vikings. Great. Yay me. Yeah. Maybe Terran is already in a really good spot though. I'm just going to say the line. You guys, I was the only guy building battle cruisers, so you can go ahead and buff them again, all right? People have gotten plenty of practice. Anyway, bug fixes. Yeah, the Cyclone, right? They set the Cyclone back to normal. I always loved the Cyclone before they broke it. I never wanted them to patch it in the first place, so like, whatever. I'm still going to use them. I always liked Cyclones. Motherships had a weird thing where they wouldn't be able to use all their attacks at range if you like didn't manually click on a unit or something like that. So cool. And then there's just a bunch of bug fixes. Some of these I actually wasn't sure. Like, oh yeah, this is actually really nice too. I wanted to make sure I called out the assimilators. The one where probes would bug out. I know some guy posted on Reddit like 500 times that was the intended design, but I just wanted to say, was it though? Anyway, those are my thoughts on the patch. I don't want to talk about bug fix notes forever. Game is more interesting for Zerg players for sure. Please get us back to Lingbane Muta. I would rather have Infested Terran instead of Microbial Shroud. This is the TLDR portion. Protoss, generally speaking, going to be a harder game for people who rely on the burst damage. People who like Disruptors will be happy, and the game is much harder now for Protoss. Like this raises the difficulty of playing Protoss considerably. So there's that. And for Terran, very boring, uninteresting changes that generally will not have an impact in most of your games. So overall, I'm just really happy that we are, again, I'd like to just call out that this update was released in less than a week from when the PTR dropped. So, and it came out on a Monday. This patch dropped on a Monday. Blizzard, everything's always like been Tuesday, this, whatever, set schedule, that. Somebody out there is paying attention And we might get another update to this PTR within a week, maybe less, maybe more. The fact is, when the first update was posted, people were already dooming and glooming and saying, guys, don't get used to this. We might not hear about this PTR. They're just going to force it in like the Balance Cabal did. They're just going to force in the changes and not listen to community feedback and sit on their high horse. No, whoever is looking at this, they're paying attention. So I'm looking forward to seeing what comes in the future. As a content creator and a lover of StarCraft, as someone who plays StarCraft, thousands of StarCraft games a year, I just want to say that I'm so happy that the game will get updates, because having boring metas or trying to convince ourselves that, like, just because we can't get an update, we have to accept this is the best meta we'll ever have. It's like, no, man, that's not how it's done anymore. Anyway, thanks for watching. Peace out, Girl Scouts.